2011, I was hiking Mount Katahdin, which is the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail, and we were doing a winter ascent. And at some point, uh, during what was supposed to be a beautiful day, a blizzard swept in, and we had chose probably the one of the harder trails to ascend this time. So it would have been pretty dangerous to turn around at that point. And so we ended up summiting during a blizzard, and on the way back, going down a different trail, more gradual, the wind ended up hitting my pack, which I had my snowshoes strapped to, and I ended up falling off a cliff where I fractured both ankles, rolled for a long ways, and could not get back up to the to my party, who had no idea where I disappeared, because we Mount Katahdin is not like a crazy hard climb. Like, you don't rope in with your party to do it. And so they didn't know where I was. They marked on a map where they knew I had like separated. And so they started booking it down the mountain and ended up getting picked up by search and rescue around midnight on the trail, because they weren't able to make it down. Search and rescue found me the following afternoon, right as the sun was starting to set. And so I spent a night in negative 70-ish temps because of the wind chill, just trying to stay warm with everything I can. And I left with some pretty severe frostbite that took a year and a half before my feet were like fully healed. But yeah, the search and rescue guys, when they found me, said that they were on a recovery mission because they didn't think there was any way someone could have survived that. And yeah, here I am.
Dude, that's wild. Is that because of army training by that point, do you think? Or is it just like you're just hardcore?
I don't know. My father's words when someone asked him about that, he told someone had said, like, were you worried he was going to die? One, he didn't know that I was up there when it happened, obviously. But he's like, nah, Chris is too stubborn to die. And so I think that's the mentality.
Dang. Okay, so that carries into like entrepreneurial interest, it seems like. So guys, we're back here today with Chris Dubois. Chris, I'm excited to sit down with you because, man, you have got all this experience on the Army side of things, which I think probably makes you a very unique operator, but you specifically help agencies, especially at that 1 million-ish point where things start getting a little bit hairy when it's like, how do I grow? I've done all this myself. Now what's going to go on? So, dude, I'm excited to talk to you today on this podcast. And I want to start by just getting really clear on what that problem is that you told me about, which is like agencies are growing. It's usually the founder. It's like referrals are going on. What do people come to you when they're feeling?
Yeah. Most frequently, agencies are coming to me when they're facing referral reliance, which essentially, and this has been tons of different agencies. We're talking, usually the smaller agencies are feeling this, but like I've worked with $3 million a year agencies, right, that are still facing referral reliance. They got to where they are by just doing good work, and timing was right for people to give them referrals. At some point during their lifespan, those referrals dried up, and now they're floundering. So I have no marketing assets. I don't even know how to market myself because I've never had to be on LinkedIn. I've never had to be on YouTube. I've never had to do, any of this content in order to make this happen. People showed up. They already knew who I was, what I was doing, and it was so easy to get them through. And that almost lulled them into this like false sense of confidence where every lead showed up and they didn't have to even be good at sales because the person already wanted to work with them thanks to some third-party referral. And so a majority of the agencies that come to me, it's like they're finally realizing how much they were reliant on referrals. And that epiphany that they have is usually sends them into some sort of panic mode where they're like, I need to figure this out. How do I take control and like gain some independence back within my marketing?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that seems terrifying when you built up this big business and it's like maybe even $1 million or $3 million. You're like, dude, I actually am pretty good at business. And then suddenly like your friends stop having friends and you're just like, oh no. Right. So what's the feeling that these people are feeling as they're coming to you? Are they just like scrambling? Have they tried other things?
Yeah, I think panic is the way to describe it, because you don't. So in a lot of ways, actually, it's like a slow roll where it's like the referrals don't just stop overnight. It's like we had a few less referrals this month than we did last month. And like, now there's a few less. Then they'll have 1 month. That's great. But then it goes right back to like, oh, now we still don't have anybody. And so it's when they realize that that's the problem, that's where they start to panic and they start looking for options. most of the agencies, especially the bigger ones, like they have runway. They've been running their business in a way where it's like, okay, I know that I got 6 months to figure this out. They're probably going to get some more referrals within that, but they know that if they can't figure this out, they're going to have to probably let team members go, right? Or they're going to have to ease back on some of the I don't know, the comforts, I guess, that they've had within their life. And so yeah, I think panic is probably nobody likes to go for, like, most people, right? You get a promotion and like you start making more and like your lifestyle goes up with it. Like very few people are just like, I'm just going to throw that in savings. But then you get used to that lifestyle. And if you ever have to cut back, like it hurts. And like nobody wants to go backwards because we all care about status. And so when you feel that in this, like it does evoke like panic where it's like, I have to go back to being like the guy who was grinding 60 hours a week, trying to get his agency off the ground instead of this guy now who's like, yeah, maybe I'm still working 40 plus, but I've got a team. Right. I just have to show up to these meetings and it's just a lot easier for them to handle.
Dude, that sounds crazy. And I know as an agency owner myself that I do not love it when people are, not sending me referrals anymore. And it does feel terrible because it feels like sometimes I don't know how to get those new clients. So like, tell me honestly, guy, how do I get those new clients? If I've been relying on referrals, what is the actual answer then that you've come up with that you coach guys in who are agency owners to actually fill their pipeline outside of referrals?
So the Dynamic Agency OS is a positioning operating system. And I found this is the fastest, probably easiest way to get someone on track to be able to take ownership of their own marketing. Because most agencies suck at marketing themselves, right? You can go do all the best work for all of your clients. And for some reason, when you got to like just look in the mirror, it's impossible. It's Solomon's paradox. It's a very real thing. And it's just something you got to deal with in the business world. Just this weekend, I had a conversation with a positioning coach who doesn't work directly with agencies, but like it's consultants. And I learned so much from talking to him that I'm like, oh, my positioning's off. And it's like, I do this for a living. And so agencies don't need to feel, like they're doing the wrong thing. It's hard. It is very hard to do this. But the Dynamic Agency OS, we do a couple things. First, we do what I call agency design, where we're going to look at like, what do you actually want the ideal state of your agency to be? Because we want to actually be building towards something that you want. This whole, you have to grow at all costs. You have to do this, right? Agency owners have to work 60 plus hours a week. Like it's all wrong. I have 2 clients who are about the same age. They're like late 20s. One said, I want to have kids later in life, so I need to work as much as I can right now so that I can coast later. The other one said, I want to enjoy the last of my 20s, keep traveling, doing all that. Both are growing their businesses in a way that they're happy. It just meant we're going to do things a little differently. We're going to prep differently. Knowing that, though, also means it kind of dictates some of the other decisions we're going to make. But so once we move from there, we're going to your niche. We need to figure out, like, generally, it's going to be someone you've already worked with in the past, right? Like you got some experience. No one's usually coming to me completely in the dark on like what they could do. And so we focus on that and we try to get as narrow as we can in the audience that you could serve. And there's tons of different ways that we could get into that. And then we look at your positioning. Okay, now given these people that we want to serve, how do we want to be seen by them? And this is a step that I feel a lot of coaching and consulting just misses, where it's like, we're actually talking about owning real estate within our buyer's mind. They can look at 10 different like people in their sales process. What's our perspective? And like, how are we known that's going to get us to stand out to them? And so we nail that POV and then we build an offer. And the offer needs to be compelling. It needs to have a great guarantee because a lot of agencies don't do great guarantees. And we'll figure out, what is this offer? What are the other offers that we need to be able to provide to get them in, depending on what stage they're at within the buyer's journey. And then from there, we focus on marketing. Hey, we have everything that we need now to go to market. So let's create the assets. Let's update your website. Let's do all of these different things so that now you can be putting yourself out there in a way that'll actually resonate with people, with your message, right? With the things that you can do for them rather than just sounding like everybody else out there.
So you have talked before about the difference between positioning and niching. And I'm really curious about this. So let's talk through this a little bit, Because where I want to go is the fact that niching is good. You've talked about that, but the positioning is like the actual foundation behind that. So can you give me like the 30,000 foot view to start about, should I niche down? What is positioning? Like, give me that general idea and then we'll go deeper on that.
Yeah. Niching and positioning are different, but they're also intertwined and both very important. Niching is all about who we serve, and we want to get very focused. Up until recently, that usually was enough for an agency to say, we work with manufacturing companies and like, you're good to go. Positioning goes even deeper than that, where now we're thinking, how do we want to be seen by our target audience, which is where the intertwinedness of niching and positioning comes in. Your positioning can be whatever you want it to be, as long as the market actually cares about that positioning, but it guides more than just your messaging. It guides your entire strategy because it becomes who you are as a business. And so you need both, but I think a lot of people get it wrong for which one they should be focused on at any given time.
What's an example for this manufacturing agency? What would a position, like a manufacturing agency, what is the positioning on that one?
To nail your positioning, right, you would want to be seen as like a single word. If you could just nail down like the essence of what you know, like we could be reliable. We can own the word reliable. So as a manufacturing agency, we know manufacturing companies care about reliability. And so we can be seen as the reliable agency. Now, what does that mean for how we're going to show up? It means when you reach out to us, we're going to get back to you within a certain time frame. We're going to produce the assets that we said we're going to produce, when and where, right? And we're going to have all those things lined up for you. Now, that's different than if we said we want to be known for speed, right? We just want to be the fastest agency within the this manufacturing space. And so now, everything that we do is going to go through that lens for our strategy. How fast can we deliver this? So it's not just that, hey, we're going to get back to you whenever you send a message. It's like within 5 minutes, you should be hearing back from someone on our team, right? And those are things that we're going to build into the process. Now, for the manufacturing company looking to hire agencies, they can look at everybody and it's not, well, what services do you offer? Now they're asking, well, do I care about reliability or do I care about speed? Because that's going to actually dictate how I make this purchase. And so for me, positioning my brand as reliable, I only want to work with people who care about reliability. And I'm now drawing them to me by setting that as my position.
Dang. Okay, so I have a side question before we go deeper on that. How important is positioning for small agencies? Because I'm like, dude, this seems like a lot of work for me, sub $1 million. Do I really need to do this?
Positioning is incredibly important for small agencies because you don't have a lot of other assets and credibility to help yourself stand out. But if you can be known for something very specific, then it doesn't take a lot of assets. It doesn't take a lot of clients for you to be able to say, no, I am known as the reliable agency in this space. And you show them how that's all baked into your process. You show them through your sales process, even how you're selling to them, how that shows up. You're talking through like the outcomes that you're targeting based on the reliability, but you can show them how that bleeds through everything that you're trying to do. So now you get to stand out, especially from agencies who are bigger players, but don't have strong positioning. Because they can say, I'm a manufacturing industry, and someone says, well, what makes you different? And they say, well, I've worked with 100 companies. And it's like, okay, but that just means you've been around for a while, right? It doesn't mean you're better. Doesn't mean anything. And so for small agencies, being able to nail down their position early and then go all in on it is incredibly important.
Dude, that's so incredibly compelling. I'm just like, oh my goodness, I need to go all in immediately on this. Okay, so let's get a little bit tactical. How is a small agency going to dial in their positioning?
For a small agency to kind of dial in their positioning, there's a couple different ways you can go about it. First, I would say, do I already have market access to a specific audience? Because that is one of the things that most agencies miss. They don't have direct access to the people they want to sell to, so it becomes very hard to get your offer in front of them. If you already have access, then you have jumped a couple hurdles already, and you're ahead of the rest of the pack. And so I can say, all right, I know I have access to this audience. What do I need to offer them? Like, what type of positioning would stand out the most to them? Because we're already in the same sphere. Like, we already know each other. And then I would pick your positioning versus another approach. If you don't have strong market access, but you're starting to play with your niche and figure out what you want to do, you might actually say, well, this is who I am and this is the type of business that I want to run. I want to be known for this. You pick that. And then within the spaces that you're interested in, that you can get market access, and all that, you start honing in and you say, well, this is my position. Let me put it in front of someone else. And now we can start seeing how it resonates. And so depending on where you are with it, like just as a person, right? You might have a network from like people get their MBAs from certain universities, right? Because you get that network. If you have a network of people who are all in the space and they're willing to vouch for you on stuff, it's like, we got market access. Let's lead with that and then find our position versus doing the inverse if we don't have it. But so as a small agency, I would pick either side depending on where you're at and then just drive on. But you need to nail that before doing your marketing.
Are you finding that agencies are resistant to niching down and finding a position?
I think most agencies are resistant to niching because they're worried about like giving up sales. And I can get into that. I also think most agencies don't have a positioning statement because they think niching is positioning. But niching, again, is just about how do we narrow down the audience so that we're talking to a very specific group of people versus positioning, which is how do we want to be seen? I can be seen by multiple different groups of people differently, right? And so like we want to be able to bring that together. Most coaches and consultants, I think, stop at niching. They say, this is enough. We've narrowed down your focus a lot, so let's just keep putting stuff in front of your audience. The challenge with that is say you only have one other competitor, but neither of you has a position, then people are going to look at you and say, do you have these services? Or, right, do I get more X, more Y? And they're just basing you purely off what they see on your website. They might have a conversation with you, but you're losing a lot of control within that engagement. Versus being able to say, I'm the reliable agency. And so if that's something that matters to you, if you appreciate reliability and you count on it, I am the person for you. But yeah, a lot of agencies, when it comes to niching, get very hesitant because they think if they say we're a healthcare agency, it means no one else is going to want to work with them. And this is a David C. Baker quote. So I should probably come up with my own version of it so that I don't have to keep citing other coaches while talking. But the niching is about who you seek, not who you accept. You can accept anyone, right? Any company can come to you and say, I'm ready to do business with you. I love how you're positioned. I love the problem you solve. I need help with that. Can I work with you? And now you're in a position where you can say yes or no. As long as it's a deliberate decision, you're good. Most agencies worry because they don't have enough pipeline coming in. They're like, well, I'm going to accept everybody. It's like, yeah, but what if that was a choice rather than a must do, right? What if you could say, you know what? My team is like, I'm going to struggle to actually keep my team employed over the next couple months. I need to take this business on. To keep the lights on, I need to accept this business. I can also say, you know what? We're not the best fit for you. So I'm actually going to hand you off to these guys. You should talk to them. Something that surprises a lot of my clients is that they will still get other businesses coming to talk to them who are not in their ICP. And even though we get super narrow, right? We'll be talking to D2C e-com companies that are manufacturing their own goods. And they may still be getting like a B2B company that comes in and says, hey, it looks like you could help me because you're solving that problem. And we get to be in this awesome position to say, yeah, we can help you. Or, you know, we're not the best fit for you. Go talk to these people.
That's really good, man. How are you convincing people who are nervous because they do fear they're going to lose sales to actually go ahead and make that switch? Because it seems like there's this really severe precipice, at least in my head, where I'm like, I know you're right, Chris. And also, like, show me, dude. Because, like, I don't know that my business is going to be the way that you say it is. So if I niche too much, suddenly I picked wrong or something like that. So help me, like, help coach me or whoever you work with on convincing us to actually bite the bullet and niche down and find a position.
One of the main reasons that I see people not niching is because they're worried that the TAM is going to be too small, right? You're worried that by getting so specific, you're not going to be able to actually attract enough people to your business. I have done math with my clients where we will pull up Chamber of Commerce information and say, if you just knocked on the doors of these types of businesses you want to work with in your city, we assume you win 5% because also 5% are in the market, right? 95-5 rule says only 5% are looking for a solution. Let's say we only win 3% of that. What size business could you grow to? Like, oh, look, a $6 million agency. If you only won 3% of the 5% of your one city. And so like I think just looking at it from that, it's like, it's worth giving it a shot to get that focused, because I guarantee you those companies, if you show up and say, hey, I only work with people like you, and we're known as being like this reliable agency for people like you, right? That's going to go a lot further than that generalist agency that's just trying to hit everyone in the city. And so that's the first thing we do is like, let's actually run numbers and show you that this is actually possible. Then 2, if we're still stuck and we don't want to just like change the homepage, right? Change everything that we're doing, like our LinkedIn headline. Instead, we create a landing page, and let's create an offer. Let's put it out there as its own landing page and show you that if you get in front of these types of companies, you're going to be able to close them at a much faster rate for a much better price point. And we just use that as the proof. Like, let's actually run a campaign and show you that this works.
So if I wanted to test this in my business, then is there an easy way to do this without doing all that crazy work that, would assume it's going to take forever?
Yeah. So the first thing I would do is create what I call a snap offer. And the idea is it's essentially a lead magnet, but it's constructed in a very specific way because most people don't use lead magnets, right? They live in someone's email inbox and they never get picked up again. We want to avoid that. So there's a very specific format. You can just go to snapoffersystem.com if you want to grab a copy of that workbook. So we won't dive into everything, but the idea is let's put up an offer that's fast, familiar, and fixable. Right? It very much serves a small problem that this audience is facing. Usually it's a symptom of the core problem that we help with. And now I can put that in front of a target audience as an offer, and just seeing how many people download that offer is going to give me an idea of whether this is something that I actually want to move forward with. Like, do people within this audience, right, this segment of the audience even, do they want to get help with this? Because if I can get 100 people filling out this one form, like that should be ringing some bells saying like, hey, this is an audience that you should actually explore. And so we do that. And then the thank you page on that is like crafted in a very specific way so that we can actually book calls. They're not just downloading a landing page, but then they're booking calls with us, where now in true actual discovery call structure, we're asking them questions. We're learning more about them. We're seeing what pain points they have. So then we can go back and refine any of these other assets. And we can just ask ourselves, ask our team, can we help these people? Because if we can, they're already coming in. They're booking calls like through this content. If we know we can help them, what's stopping us from shifting our homepage to also match?
Okay, now that I get this like positioning and the niche, and like I know that I should go through this process, you're like, so that you can have this repeatable marketing system. Let's talk about that. How do I talk about marketing system? What am I getting from you if we work together? How am I putting that out into the world and making sales? Walk me through your thoughts on the repeatable marketing side of this, if you got them.
So the second reason that most agencies fail when it comes to marketing themselves is because they're following all of the just best practice advice that's out there in the market. They're being told they have to publish on LinkedIn, that they have to have a YouTube channel, right? They have to be running ads, and all of it is conflicting with each other, and all of it's conflicting often with their market. What you actually have to do is step 1, have your positioning, right? Have your niche, all of that. But then with that audience research that you've conducted, figure out where are they already hanging out? Where is my target audience showing up to be part of the conversation? LinkedIn is often not the place that they're hanging out to discover solutions to problems. Right? No one goes into the search bar on LinkedIn and types in their problem. They're going up there typing in a name. They're typing in a person, maybe a job, right? They're doing things to find people they're already familiar with. So for discovery, they're going to Reddit. They're going to YouTube. They're going to Google. They're using AI now, right? They're using all these other platforms where people actually look for solutions to their problems. They find them, right? It could be a podcast, even listening to a podcast. And nobody opens up a like you don't find a podcast and just download every episode. You scroll through and find the ones that are interesting to you right now based off your problems. And so we have to be able to distinguish discovery channels versus trust building channels. LinkedIn, great trust building channel. That's where people go to actually like learn more about you, to get in, like see what you're talking about. And so you should be sharing your perspective. It's really hard to share your perspective when you don't have a position, when you don't have a POV, right? And so we need that in order to be able to market there. And then once you have people actually following, then it's easy to get them into the conversion channel, where whether it's your website, your DMs, anywhere else. So problem one, nailing down your positioning and being able to like lead with that. Problem two is being able to market where your audience already is, crafting a buyer's journey that actually matches how they buy, not how other agencies and consultants are telling you you should be marketing.
Dude, this is so clarifying, I think, because it's taking away a lot of the uncertainty that exists in marketing. Because when I hear most marketing, it's like, well, this guy's got this system, this guy's got this system, this guy's got this system. They're all kind of the same, but they're kind of different. And if you do it this way, you can't really do it this way because of, constrained resources or whatever. So you're saying that if you have the niche and you have the position and you've got like actually what your business stands for and does and like how it does that and how it wants to be perceived, then the marketing's like almost obvious because you know exactly who you're talking to, you know exactly where they hang out, and you know exactly what they want to hear from you to then be like sold on your thing. So for marketing now, I've got a little bit of an idea that was super helpful, but I want to know, because I've seen you say something about like prioritizing demand over supply. I mean, that maybe I get, but maybe I don't. Like, talk to me a little bit about why agencies need to prioritize demand over supply.
The agencies that are going to win in today's market are the ones that can bring in the most business. Any company is either going to be constrained by supply or demand. In the agency space, we're playing a knowledge game, right? It is very easy to fill supply because I'm not limited to some inventory that sits on a shelf. I can hire more people. I can get more efficient with my operations. Right? I can change up how we're completely structured. There are so many things I can do to expand supply just with a snap of a finger, right? Demand, you cannot do it the same way because you're reliant on the market. I can put everything out there, but if the market doesn't resonate with whatever message, I'm not getting new business. And so the agencies that are winning are the ones who are able to reliably, continually bring in new business through their marketing efforts. As a bonus, when you are able to do that, right, it only makes it easier to do this in the future because you're getting more case studies, you're getting more testimonials, your team is getting more reps to become experts at what they do. You're able to pattern match way faster because you have just had more chances to actually try this out than anyone else. And so I think a lot of agencies will focus on supply as a way of like feeling busy, like they're being productive because it's within their control. They're able to do things and they actually feel like they're working on the business when in reality, they should be focused on demand.
So, dude, I think I could probably guess this, but I want you to tell me, if you had a magic wand to fix agency pipeline, what would that magic wand be?
I think if I could wave a magic wand to help agencies with like all of their pipeline troubles, I would have them all install some sort of positioning operating system so that they can fully understand who their target audience is, where they're hanging out, and then how to provide an offer to them that they actually want. So now your pipeline is filled and in your control.
Okay. So I know we're coming up to the end of our time here, but I, have to ask you about your time in the Army. It seems a little bit silly to be like, dude, did you learn anything about growing agencies in the Army? And you're like, yeah, shooting guns. Like, doesn't make any sense. But I'm sure there's a lot more that you actually did learn that you can now see with hindsight applies to what you're doing today. So are there any like amazing stories from the Army that you're like, dude, this really helps me today in my business?
Yeah. One of my favorite things from the Army that translates really well to the business world is a strategy that I call green pen, red pen, blue pen. And it's part of what the Army calls intelligence preparation of the battlefield. And so to simplify it, it's like, hey, we know we're going in here and there's going to be a fight. How do we actually like collect intel, like do the thinking behind whatever event's about to unfold to make sure that we're going in with our best foot forward? And so how this came about for green pen, red pen, blue pen is that we use on a map, we're using different colored pens to denote different things. A green pen is all about terrain and like the environment. right? So it's all things that we and the enemy have to deal with. And so first, we're going to look at the map and we're going to just pick out all of the different things that we have to deal with and the enemy has to deal with. We're looking at them from different perspectives, right? The enemy's on one side of the battlefield, we're on the other. And so this cliff in the middle is still something we both have to deal with, but it could be advantageous to one of us. Once we know all of those details about the terrain, everything that we have to look at, then we look at the enemy. Okay, what are their capabilities? What is their most likely course of action? What's their most deadly course of action? What are the things that we can expect them to do so that we can then move to the blue pen, which is finally our plan? Okay, knowing all of these things with the environment and the enemy, how can I show up to make sure that we're mitigating risk and we're actually going to achieve whatever our end mission is? Now, in the business world, it's essentially the same thing. We're first going to use our green pen. What does the market look like? What's going on in the environment, right? What are the things that we need to pay attention to that everyone who is a competition to me still has to deal with? Then we look at the red pen. Okay, what is the competition doing? What are the things they're offering? How are they showing up? What are their points of view in the market? Figure all that out. And then we can look at ourselves and say, okay, knowing all of these things, where are the gaps and opportunities within the market, within my competition, so that I can show up and actually achieve all of my goals.
Chris, thank you so much for telling us all about positioning, niching, and actually how to run an agency profitably that has a marketing engine behind it and not just referral reliance, which, everyone of us agency owners can feel and fear. So for those of us who want to learn more about this kind of stuff, where are you going to send people? What resources do you have? Where do you want people to follow you?
You can check out dynamicagencys.com or come find me on LinkedIn, Chris Dubois.
Sweet. We'll put those down in the show notes. All right, guys, this has been another episode of the Solution Advisors Podcast. We'll see you here next time.